That's great. So if I want to start a sweatshop, just have loads of kids and then straight in.
That's what I'm doing. But now it's just him and his girlfriend.
Doing mushrooms.
Man.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like that? He reviewed our homemade goujons, our battered sausages, and our homemade chicken burger. The next week, there were 3 things that we just couldn't keep in the shop. Like, without naming names of
Name names, go on.
No, seriously.
We want to start an internet beef here. That's what we're trying to do.
There are some influencers out there that I can't stand the sight of. Now, I do watch them. We were doing like 350, 400 orders in 6 hours. You have to be able to let go.
Yeah.
Which is something that Italians are difficult. You know, we're not known for
letting go.
Yeah.
Welcome to this Flipdish Takeaways podcast. I'm joined by Francesco DiRuzza. Hope I got that pronunciation correctly.
Good man.
Excellent. Owner-operator of Burger Hill in Arklow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming in. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. So take us back. Where did your journey start with food? How did you get into hospitality?
Well, I guess I was kind of dragged into it kicking and screaming, would be the realistic answer to that. Kind of need to circle back a little bit. So my dad kind of came over from Italy when he was 16.
Wow. Okay.
I went to work for the Macari's, the famous Macari's of, you know, Dublin, Ireland, everywhere.
Yeah.
And he ended up meeting my mum working in the chipper, and they fell in love. and here I am.
Yeah. The stork came along and
just dropped me into the chipper. Straight into the fryer. But yeah, no.
What age did you start actually working in it?
I actually started working in the chipper when I was like 12 or 13.
Wow,
so I'm
okay.
30.
Possibly illegal.
Not really. No. There's no age limits on family working.
Oh, is there not?
No.
Oh,
That's only for somebody else you're employing.
That's great. So if I want to start a sweatshop, just have loads of kids and then straight in.
That's what I'm doing. You know, follow my lead.
How many have you got?
5, man.
Oh,
5,
my days.
Yeah.
Oh, my days. Yeah. So that's just a bit like a business in itself.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's full-time babysitting business. Yeah.
So the payroll alone is a nightmare.
If only I got paid by the hour for that, you know?
Yeah. So then when did you kind of start taking maybe a more lead role in the business? We started out in Harold's Cross, and that was where the family takeaway was, and we branched out for a while and got a second shop in Blackrock. Moved away from that again, just, you know, didn't really work out. And then my dad sent me to work with a friend of his just for a few weeks in Dunleary. And I discovered that the shop that I was going to work in was for sale. And I went home and convinced my dad to sell his own shop and move to Dunleary. So how did that conversation go?
It wasn't that hard to sell, actually. No? You know, funnily enough, like, because we'd been in Harold's Cross for most of my life.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was kind of like, you know, this shop out here is not a late night shop. It opens at 12. It closes at 8. Mm-hmm. They don't even open on a Sunday. Do you know? Yeah. It's like, from a takeaway chipper perspective, it's actually a dreamy kind of situation. Do you know what I mean?
If you can make it work, right?
Yeah, if you can make it work. So I was like, this shop hasn't been touched since the 50s. I was like, if we go in there and we refit that shop, we're going to make more money, you know? And he's like, okay, son, I'll take you up on that, but you have to come and work for me. So I was like, oh, no.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, exactly. So I always swore I'd never get into the business. And here I am.
Yeah, doing a podcast about the business.
Yeah, 35, 36 years later.
You're about as in as you can possibly.
I couldn't be any more in. Yeah.
Love that. I actually wanted to dig in, and maybe it's a touchy subject, but just, you mentioned obviously trying to open that second location. We obviously have, you know, customers or people who might listen who are thinking about that. Was there any big learnings from like trying to do that second location? Like, what would you do different the next time around?
Oh, well, it was a long time ago, to be honest with you. I was only a kid at the time that was happening, so I wouldn't have had much input into the business at that stage. I was just basically a staff member, but I remember it being really tough from the point of view of my mother and father had to split their time. They had to spend a lot of time apart, and they did one shop each pretty much.
Okay.
Which was a lot of strain on the family, you know. But I think you have to have good people around you if you're going to do something like that. You know, you have to have people you can trust, and by people I mean staff and management people, and you have to be able to let go.
Yeah.
Which is something that Italians are difficult. You know, we're not known for
letting go.
You know, realistically, you have to be able to say, look, that person's in charge of that. If they don't do their job, I'll get somebody else. Off you go. You know.
But you do have to let them or give them the opportunity to do that job, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And it will be different the way you do it as well, right? That's what people like. We have a way of doing it, and then once somebody else comes in, you know, it's kind of like Chinese whispers or whatever. Everything starts changing processes.
Well, look, there's a thing, like, I mean, I guess in English you'd call it a touch. In Italian you call it la mano, which just means your hand, but it really means, you know, everybody's touch is a little bit different.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to accept that. You know, it's not necessarily better or worse, but like I remember taking over the shop in Dunleary after my dad passed away. And I remember so many people saying to me, oh, I'm sorry for your loss, but, you know, and later on saying, nobody made the fish like your dad did. And I'm like, but I've been watching him for 25, 30 years doing it. And what do you mean it's not the same? You know, it looks the same to me, you know, but he just had a few little things that he did slightly different. And it took me about 18 months of experimenting. And most of those people came back to me and said, you've got it now.
Really?
Yeah, you've got it now. So
yeah, it's interesting that touch. And I think anyone I've talked to about opening a second store is, obviously you said your parents kind of split the responsibility, which is probably the best way to do it, because every problem I've heard is that they can't find somebody who cares as much as them when they're trying to find, maybe it's a franchisee or something like that. It's hard to get someone who cares about the brand and what you do.
I don't know if that was the best way of doing it, to be honest with you, myself, in hindsight. If it was me, I definitely wouldn't split with my partner to do a second business. You know, what I mean is I wouldn't have one person in each place. I think you have to be able to let go of the reins. You know, I think for historically, like, Italians and chippers have been there 24/7. Like, if you have a local chipper, you know that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, I think an important lesson for people to learn in the takeaway industry is, you know, if you're the face of something and you step away from it, even if the food is better or the same, the public's view of it is that it's not the same because that person's not there.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you think chipper has that maybe more than other types of business? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I feel like the role in the community is different. Do you feel that, or like
the attachment to the community is really strong. It's a very Italian thing. Like, you know, like, I would know probably 80 to 90% of my customers on a first name basis. I'd know what's going on with them. Yeah. And bearing in mind, Arklow is not where I grew up. So, you know, but it's a thing. People come in and they talk to you over the counter. Like, you know, if you open the conversation and you're open to having a conversation with somebody, you'd be surprised what comes out. You'd be very surprised what comes out. But like, it's great to have a community there. And I think chippers play a really important role in the community. Like, I know fast food is not necessarily healthy food. It's not healthy food at all, let's be honest. But there are a lot of people who depend on it. Like, a lot of older people and stuff, you know, when they get to that stage where they're, you know, maybe not so mobile anymore and stuff like that, they depend on us, you know. They really do.
And for a chat as well, right? Just come in, like, it's a bit of social interaction.
Exactly. Like, you look, if an older person comes in, or like, I always make the extra effort to have a chat with them, because you don't know if they've spoken to somebody that day, or you know, like, I know my partner was a carer for a while, and, you know, she often remarked on the fact that, you know, you really don't know if anybody that you're visiting has seen somebody before, and that one conversation every day can
can make all the difference, you know?
And that's what creates loyalty as well. People will come back just for that, even to chat to you and everything. Like,
but look, it costs nothing to have a chat with somebody, and it costs nothing to say hello to people, you know? Like, I'm a huge believer in that. Like, I won't go back to a place if I walk into it and nobody says hello to me or doesn't acknowledge me when I walk in the door. I can understand if it's busy, but from an independent kind of operations point of view, you absolutely have to say hello to somebody when they walk into your shop. Like, you know, you just have to. Like,
I think
it's
that's
just
expected in the chipper business as well. Like, if I go into there's other restaurants that I would go into, and maybe you will be ignored, but if I go into a chipper, I know my local one, the guy always just roars. Even if he turn his over his shoulder and go, how are you? Like, he knows you come in the door, he'll be with you in a sec. You know, it's just acknowledgements. It's like nice. You don't get that in other places. You know, they might be on the phone and they kind of just staring blankly at you until you're like,
man, phones. You know. Phones in chippers and restaurants have not, like, I can't stand seeing a member of staff on a phone.
Okay.
You know, that's a pet hate, you know.
That's gonna take me to my next question then of technology. You've obviously been in the business where you're saying 30 odd years, so you've obviously seen the difference between online ordering and the tech in the restaurant industry. How have you seen that like affect businesses?
It has made it way more streamlined, I think. I mean, years ago we had to, and this was not my forte at all, but we just had to remember the orders, you know. You just had to, and there were systems for that. Like, you know, there's 3 or 4 different size brown bags, so you'd be like counting the bags out to try and help you remember what your order was, and you'd leave them stacked up, you know, stuff like that. Or you'd be opening chip bags and throwing them onto the glass part of the big fryers and stuff like that, just to remember how many chips you'd need and stuff like that. And then you might have to repeat the order back to the customer when you got to the counter to make sure that it was the right stuff going out. But now it's like, you know, touchscreen, printer, docket, bang, you know, and that does make things easier, but it makes you lazy.
Yeah, your brain doesn't switch on as much as it used to.
It's like using a calculator versus totting stuff up in your head.
I think it's amazing how many chippers I've seen have been pen and paper, even like in my time here at Flipdish, you know, going into customers and, you know, they're just adopting our product or whatever, and they've literally been using a scratch pad for orders and a non-digital till, like just somewhere they can put the cash in. Yeah, that's it. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at that at all. I'm not surprised at all. Like I remember moving to touchscreen tills from a standard till, and it was like a whole different world. You know, especially when it came to deliveries, like, you know, because, you know, and then I remember acquiring Flipdish during COVID. And that was a game changer as well, like, you know, big time, especially in those times. Like that was some crazy times.
But the online ordering thing, obviously, I think kept a lot of businesses afloat during that time, because it was that or close, right?
Sink or swim. Yeah. It was like I think an awful lot of Italian takeaways closed. I didn't personally. I closed the front shop and I kept deliveries going. And I ended up being the only person open in Arklow.
Oh wow!
So it was chaos. It was
a monopoly.
Oh man, it's the only time it ever happened to me. So I was like, okay, this isn't a nice experience, but I wouldn't like it to be all day, every day for the rest of my, you know, business career.
Did you feel like you had to turn away orders during that time, or was there like how busy did it get in that kind of peak of?
It got nuts. It got really nuts. We were doing like 350, 400 orders in 6 hours. So
how many people did you have?
The shop was just packed full of staff and drivers, and we just kind of adopted a kind of a Domino's pizza style situation, like, and it wasn't that difficult to manage, because we didn't have the counter as well.
Okay.
So you just had that, you know, you knew the phone was going to ring or a Flipdish order would come in, and then
you just had to have enough drivers to just keep things going every 10 or 15 minutes. So it was good. It was good times.
Yeah, good, financially good. Yeah, bad for the globe.
Yeah, exactly.
And do you still use phones now in the restaurant, or obviously you've expressed a bit of a hatred of phones? Is that still a thing?
I just don't like how, even myself, look, we're all guilty of, you know, even if you try not to use your phone when you're at work and you're not supposed to, obviously different for you. You need your phone to work, you know. But like myself and my staff, we don't need our mobile phones to work. We need the landline in the shop, all right. But I just, you know, you're always tempted to just touch your screen as you're walking past it and have a little look and see, and you know, it's an addiction for people. It really is.
100%, yeah. And I think maybe in that scenario as well, it's probably not, from a health and safety point of view, great to have.
No, it's not ideal when there's hot grills and you know, hot oil everywhere.
And you got your phone out and you're
no, it's
checking Instagram.
No, not a good call at all.
On that topic, are you on socials? Do you do the social media thing? Or
we have Burger Hill Arklow we're at Burger Hill Arklow on Instagram and Facebook.
And what do you post? Are you like doing the TikTok trends or things like that, or are you doing?
Not so much TikTok. It's something that we're looking at getting into a little bit more. It just seems to be, you know, it's definitely a younger person's platform. Although I feel like a lot of the younger generation are gym bunnies now. They're like, you know, which is kind of interesting because they have to have cheat days too, right? So, you know, it's another market to try and tap into, which is something we've been looking at for the last while.
There's no better cheat meal as well. So
chipper.
Like it's the best cheat meal if you're gonna have one. Like.
Yeah, exactly.
So what sort of content are you posting? Is it you? Are you the star of the show?
No. I try to. I have had a couple of videos up there. I brought in actually a friend of mine who does a little bit of content work and social media work, and then my partner used to be a social media officer, so she's quite fluid with that kind of stuff. So between us, we've gotten a few bits and pieces up there, a few kind of funny videos, you know, a few just posts. We try to be a little bit funny if we can.
Yeah, I think that's so important to bring a bit of personality to the whole thing, right? It's not just here's our food, like come and buy it.
Yeah,
it's more
look,
like
we're
a bit of crack. Like.
Yeah, it's not a multi-million euro company that is just like buy this, buy that. You know, like you said, you know, you have to. People come in and. I would often scream at, like you said yourself, I would often scream at somebody from the back of the shop. Oh, it's you again, is it? What are you doing here? You know, oh, you're back again. What did you forget? You know, you have to slag people off a little bit.
Yeah, you need to have that bit of fun, not take yourself too seriously and things like that.
Man. It doesn't hurt.
No, absolutely not. And I think it's one of those things that a lot of restaurants that I speak to, it can be quite daunting, the whole social media thing, because there's so many different audiences. You know, obviously you've got your angry uncle on Facebook, and then you've got like the kind of the millennials on Instagram, and then you've got your Gen Zs on TikTok, and it's like, am I meant to make different content for all of these people who's looking at this?
That's
and like,
interesting. I've never considered that.
Yeah. And I'm only considering it now just from having talked to restaurants, and actually the last person we had on the podcast was a global marketing director for Vapiano, who have like 150 stores globally. Wow. So she was kind of talking about that different brand voice across those different channels, which I just thought was a really interesting concept, because, you know, everyone's different, they want different things. And we had, I don't know if you saw, we had Teresa Borza on the podcast.
Know Teresa,
and she's been doing the TikTok thing now. And one of her TikTok videos, I think, got about 3 million views, just her dancing and putting some chips in a bag. And like people just like, this is great. And like, that's free advertising. You have to pay thousands of euros to get 3 million views on anything, you know, if you were to do radio or TV or anything like that. So definitely one of those things, I think, you know, you give the phone to the youngest member of staff and say, go and film something funny there and put it up, and, you know, you go viral. And
it is a difficult thing to do, though.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah,
I have to say, like, I struggled with it. I struggled with it big time, but I did find that, like, having somebody come in and just bounce ideas off you, and, you know, like, shout out to Liam Cooney who does some of our content for us. Well, he shoots it, but he's a very creative mind. he's just one of those people who is genuinely very funny himself.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's up for anything.
Yeah.
So it's great to have that kind of person to just buzz off. Like, you know, when you're in work, you know, it's hard to concentrate on not just getting orders out and keeping things streamlined and talking to the customers. Whereas if you have somebody come in and even just do a little bit of camera work for you, it can just let the creative juices flow a bit better.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's one of those things, if you do a video and it doesn't go well, it's not a big deal. It's not like you've destroyed your brand. It's like, we'll just try again. We'll do something else. We'll see what people adapt to. So,
but it's actually amazing how much social media influences sales, and like in the modern ages, like, you know, it's like, listen to me, I sound like such an old man.
Yeah, I was going to say, back in my day.
in my day. Yeah, no, you're dead right. But no, seriously, like we had a review just out of the blue from Nasty, and he reviewed our homemade goujons, our battered sausages, and our homemade chicken burger. And the next week, they were 3 things that we just couldn't keep in the shop, you know. So like, they have power, like they have huge power, and I don't know if they even realize they can make or break people, you know. And
I've seen the negative ones, and I've seen owners go absolutely spare about negative reviews and things.
I have to say, like, without naming names of
names, go on.
No, seriously,
we want to start an internet beef here. That's what we're trying to do.
There are some influencers out there that I can't stand the sight of. Now, I do watch them.
Yeah.
I do watch them anyway. Watch them. You love to hate them, man.
Yeah,
you love to hate them. But they're like saying things like, you know, oh, this, you know, I got a fish and chips. Oh, now this fish isn't flaky, so it couldn't be fresh fish. And, you know, and you're saying, do you even know what kind of fish that is?
Yeah.
You know, do you realistically know what kind of fish that is? No, you probably don't. You know, and then things like, you know, oh, the batter isn't crispy. Well, that's a personal preference, do you know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Not everywhere does their fish really well done. Not everywhere does it, like, you know, soft. Not, you know, it just, if the customer asks for it, you do it, you know.
Absolutely.
You do your own kind of standard, but this guy is just like, drives me mad.
Oh, I'll get the name off after.
Later.
Yeah, later, yeah. We'll go into it. Yeah, no, I've definitely been influenced by that myself. I think I saw a guy who, like, it's the most Irish thing ever. He reviews spice bags, and he went to, it's like a Chinese restaurant quite close to me, and was like, this is the best spice bag I've ever had. And immediately then I was like, well,
I'll try that.
I'm going to try it. Like, I'd never gone there before. I have a local one that I've been ordering since I was a kid. And I was like, well, let me try this new one, because this fella said it's the best one he's ever. And this whole job is reviewing spice bags. Yeah. So I was like, that does carry weight. And I'm sure other people saw that and, like, you know, went down to that place as well. It was absolutely hopping when I went down as well. So I can imagine it's having
it's
that.
Like, you know, like I've never really realized, and that was only a recent thing that happened for me. But I never realized the power of it before, you know. It really is something that, like, if you're in that zone where you're floundering a little bit and you're not turning over enough money, that is something that can just turn everything around for you on a penny, you know.
Absolutely. Any particularly memorable customer experiences you've had? Any customers come in, bit of a character, or anything wild happen in the store in your 30 odd years?
Yeah, we've had a few kind of, we had a big mill up in the shop probably about 10 years ago. Just a load of guys just got into it. Did
you get involved? You had a few digs in?
In those situations, you either, if you know the people, you can jump in, and I did have to, and I just had to separate them, because at one stage they were trying to pick up chairs. We used to have chairs and tables. They were trying to pick up chairs and start throwing them at each other.
WWE style, like,
man, it was nuts. Like, but yeah, no, I haven't had that many. We haven't had that much trouble in the shop over the years, thankfully. You know,
what was the fight over?
Well, it was Arklow, so, you know. They might have just looked at each other wrong.
Yeah.
In fairness, Arklow's a real boxing town.
Okay,
you know, so, but it's good. It's a good town. I have to say, if it wasn't for Arklow, I wouldn't have anything, you know. I love Arklow, and I love Arklow people. They're funny. They're very funny.
We're not bashing Arklow.
No, we're not bashing Arklow at all, man. We're not bashing Arklow at all.
So one piece of technology in your restaurant then that you wouldn't be able to, like, survive without?
Doesn't have to be Flipdish. Could be anything that you have. Just something that you're like, if that goes down, we're goosed.
Tills, man.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, touchscreen tills, game changer. Yeah, it's just from the point of view of, you know, like we've had something as simple as the printer doesn't work and you're upside down.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
You're really upside down. But like also Flipdish has been huge from the point of view of not having to spend 2, 3, 4 minutes on the phone between answering the phone, taking an address, all of those kind of things, taking a phone number. People like, you know, people saying, like another one of my personal, I'm gonna come across as the guy who owns the chipper that hates everything, but like, you know, the worst thing, and all of my staff will agree with me, is, you know, you answer the phone and the person goes, oh yeah, can I make an order for delivery? Yeah, no problem. What would you like? And they go, 1 second. What do you want? What do you want? And you can see them pointing at each person in the room in your head, and you're just going, don't say anything. Don't say anything. Just say, okay, what would you like? Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Write it down.
Write it down. But like, you know, Flipdish eliminates that kind of stuff, which is fantastic, you know. And it also eliminates the factor of people maybe saying, oh, but I ordered this, when realistically from time to time they may not have.
Yeah.
You know, you can not take the hit on didn't they, okay, I just have to send that food item anyway because I have to keep the customer sweet, you know.
Absolutely. And if you know, you'll probably know who's maybe messing and who might be,
it's a difficult one.
Really,
it is a difficult one because, you know, like I trust my staff. Most of my staff have been with me for 10 years plus. Some of them have been with me up to 20.
Okay.
So yeah,
basically family.
Yeah, basically, yeah, which is a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah,
because I don't like working with family. but yeah, no, it's hard to tell when people are like, some people you know straight away.
Yeah.
You know straight away, maybe because of who they are, or maybe because of their tone.
Yeah.
You just know,
Yeah.
you know. But I'm a big believer in if you make a mistake with something, if we make a mistake with something, I think that's an opportunity to make a lifelong customer.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, because if you fix it properly, that person's never going to forget it. And that's where you create an absolute 100% loyal customer forever.
Yeah.
You know?
We used to do this in college. I'm probably ratting myself out now for a crime, but this used to be a thing we do in Maynooth. When I went to college in Maynooth, and there's a McDonald's there, drive-through, and you'd drive up, you'd order your food, and then you'd drive back around and say, you forgot my nuggets, and there was never any nuggets ordered, and then they would just give you, because it means not like probably the conversation costs them more than whatever the 6 nuggets cost, and they throw the nuggets into the bag. So sorry, McDonald's. I hope you're doing all right without those couple of quid. But that was like a college student thing, you know, where you're surviving on big bowls of pasta and stuff.
If this goes viral now, man.
Yeah, I know. I'm in so much trouble. Cancelled. Yeah. Nugget thief. Tell me, are you using any marketplaces, or are they available out there? Like, do you use Just Eat or Uber?
No,
or
absolutely not.
So it's just Flipdish and your website. And
yeah, I'm a big believer in loyalty to brands. I'm a huge believer in loyalty and relationships with suppliers also in the same vein. I think it's really important from the point of view of, you know, if you're stuck for something, if you have a personal relationship with somebody, they will cover you.
yeah,
You know, and it's not always easy to step away from your business to go and collect something, or to go and, you know, or to go and sort something out, or whatever it may be, from whatever point of view. Like Colette, for example,
yeah,
your own work colleague, never doesn't answer the phone.
Yeah.
Never. And that's rare.
yeah.
You know, that's a rare thing nowadays. Like most people, and if she happens to not answer, she will absolutely text you within a minute or two and say, I'm really sorry, I can't talk right now. I will ring you at whatever time. Not a lot of people do that, man. like that's personal service.
It's great to hear.
Do you know? And like I know this is a big company,
Yeah.
so like I'm surprised that exists here.
Yeah. It is nice, and I think the people, particularly like here in the office, like Colette's in the office, you know, regularly, you can hear her on the phone, like she's just constantly, you know, helping customers, dealing with things. It's so nice to hear that kind of level of dedication is put in. So it's great to hear you can feel it as well, because you're right. The feedback we get is, you know, if they're working with another, maybe a competitor or maybe even a marketplace, it's so hard to get in touch with them. It's so hard to get things fixed and stuff like that. So it's nice to hear that, you know, we are doing that.
Colette's top class. More money for Colette.
She actually just got a promotion. So
that's great.
Yeah, exactly. So that is great. So what would be? These are a couple of questions I ask everyone. Death row meal if you're on the way out.
Oh man,
what are you having?
I'm going through a bit of a Japanese kind of ramen and sushi phase at the moment.
Okay.
Not that I've never been into that before, but that's kind of, myself and my daughter are kind of on a little food review tour of everywhere at the moment.
Love that.
I think probably sushi, man.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
probably like avocado rolls.
Nice.
Yeah, I can't get enough of those. I would eat them until they were coming out of my ears. I'm still searching for the best one. So far, Musashi and Black Rock is like...
It's the best.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Okay. Great.
But I would like to hit Japan and see...
Yeah.
And see what it's really supposed to be like.
If you're on death row, maybe insist they fly them in from Japan just to prolong your
Why
life
not?
a little bit.
I mean, if it's a possibility,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, they'll do it. And that kind of takes me, maybe it is, you just answered it, but favourite restaurant in Ireland, where are you going?
I tell you, I really like, it's not a restaurant, it's a truck.
Oh, okay.
But I can't pass it ever.
Without stopping.
The Mushroom Butcher, have you heard of him?
No.
Man, Mark, he used to have a restaurant called Virginity, I think it's called, or Virginity. I'm not sure how to. I think he's Kiwi or Australian. Okay. I think he's a Kiwi, yeah. But he used to have this restaurant. It kind of got a bit too much, went bust, and he was living with a guy. Sorry, I'm probably over elaborating.
No,
here,
go for it.
He was living with a guy because, again, he's a person that just speaks to his customers and has the chats with them, which is what I like to do. So I really see something there. But he was just living with a guy who was growing mushrooms.
Doesn't sound dodgy at all.
No, not dodgy mushrooms.
Yeah, legit mushrooms.
He was just growing mushrooms for sale to restaurants. And he went off on holidays and said to Mark, look after them mushrooms for me, and never came back, right? Or I think that was the story. He either emigrated or went on holidays and decided to stay where he was.
Yeah.
And Mark was left with all these mushrooms going, this is not too hard at all, or I really like this or something.
Yeah.
And he decided to start growing all these kind of lion's mane mushrooms and oyster mushrooms and kind of, not your run-of-the-mill button mushrooms that you get in the supermarket, the exotic ones. And he's also a wicked chef, so his whole menu is mushrooms. Yeah, so he's there at Portobello, Leonard's Corner. Okay, he has a little truck.
Yeah, and
he's there on a Saturday and a Sunday. And I do my best to get there least one of those 2 days. And he's only there from kind of, I think, 10 till 3. But if you don't make it before 1:30 or 2 o'clock, you're not getting food.
Wow.
He does the best. He does these beignets. They're like a deep fried kind of dumpling. They're like a New Orleans style dumpling.
Oh, wow.
And his food is unreal.
I love that it's so like exclusive, that it's only available during that tiny window. You gotta get there. Drives demand. It's an interesting.
It's unbelievable. His whole backstory is amazing. Like he had a really serious restaurant, and it just was not happening the way it should have for him, and it was a lot of work. So now it's just him and his girlfriend.
Doing mushrooms,
man.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like that?
Yeah, exactly. So I think you're kind of preempting every question I'm asking. So we always ask our guests, is there anyone in the industry you've met who you think would be a really great guest on the podcast?
Mark would be awesome.
Mark
Mark would be awesome. Yeah. I like
post mushrooms or pre mushrooms.
Either or. He always seems the same to me. He's always in good form. So
okay, great. Mark, what's his full name?
I couldn't tell you. I'm sorry.
No,
Mark the mushroom.
The mushroom guy.
The mushroom guy.
I'm sure he'll love to be.
No, but honestly, you have to try. Do you like mushrooms?
I'm not against them. I'm not like particularly for them, but I've never seen anyone do them interestingly. Okay. So the fact that he's doing them like this makes me
he changes his menu up like nearly every 2 weeks.
Cool.
So like he does like a mushroom version of a chicken fillet roll. Like subbing out the chicken for the mushrooms, obviously. But like my daughter doesn't like mushrooms, the one who does the
sushi with you,
the sushi with me, and she was like, she couldn't get enough of it.
Wow. Okay.
You know, she was like, I'll have a taste of it, and she's no, and she got a taste of it, and then she wouldn't give it back to me. So I was like, okay, this is proof, something. You know.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Okay, and then the other question I have for you then is a bit of advice you would give to your younger self if you were going back into the business again. What's your kind of big takeaway from all of it?
I would definitely reinvest more money into the business from day one.
Okay.
It's something just through circumstance that I didn't do. I would definitely...
And you felt like that held you back, or that didn't let the business grow?
Yeah, like, I mean, calling a spade. My shop's a little run down looking now.
Okay.
You know, so I really wish that I had upgraded maybe every 3 or 4 years, done some more bigger things, which is hopefully on the cards in the very near future.
Because now it's a really big job, right?
Now it's a really big job. Yeah. So that. I think that would be a top thing, because it's important for customers coming in to see that you're looking after things. Like, my shop is clean. I do get a lot of remarks on how clean my shop is. But having said that, it is another thing that I hate when I walk in the door of my own shop. I'm like, you know,
that needs to be.
Yeah, I see everything. You know,
snag list in your head, being
and it's a little dated looking. I know, like, for some people,
character.
For some people, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But I'm just bored with it.
Okay,
you know?
so it's getting done now.
Yeah.
Okay, so invest a bit more money at the start. Anything else, or
good people?
Yeah,
good people with you working is hugely important, because you know, you never know when somebody's going to be sick, or you never know when you'll need cover. You never know when you need somebody to really, really dig in for you, like during a super busy time. And you know, if you have good people, and back to the suppliers things, like, you know, most of my suppliers, I'd say 90% of my suppliers, if I rang them and I needed something on a non-delivery day, they'll show up. Wow. You know, so I think that's hugely important. You know, because you can't operate when you have to run around yourself all the time. You need energy to operate.
Absolutely. And what would be your biggest struggle currently? Like, what's the thing that like keeps you awake at night?
Ooh, I feel a little like VAT and tax is, you know, it. Look, we all know you have to pay your dues, you have to pay your taxes. That's what keeps the country going. But, I mean, in Europe, you don't pay VAT on food. You know, are we not part of Europe? We're supposed to be. Yeah. You know, so things like that. You know, I'm not saying we shouldn't pay VAT at all. You know, that would be a huge hit to the economy, to government coffers overnight. I get that, but I feel like restaurants and food service are just getting squeezed the whole time. Yeah. Like, we had 2 increases in chicken over the last 2 weeks. We had 2 increases in beef products over the last 2 weeks. Like, not just 1, 2 in a row. Yeah. You know, it's hard to combat those kind of things without just billing the customer all the time. Yeah. And there's only so much you can do that, but at the same time, it's sink or swim.
Yeah, you have to.
You know, and unfortunately, it's got to a stage where things cost so much now, no matter what takeaway food you do, that like a 5% increase is much more noticeable than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
For the customer, I mean,
Yeah.
but also for us, you know.
So I was actually out at the protest, the VAT protest in town before Christmas, and yeah, it was, you could obviously hear the frustration of restaurant owners and stuff of going from that 9 back to the 13.5, and
It's
like,
huge,
it's huge hit.
Yeah, it's enormous. Like, you know, there's, and like, you know, there must be alternative ways of making up that money. You know,
Yeah.
there has to be. You know, even like, you know, I know there's grants out there for renewables and stuff like that, but like, would it not be better to loan the businesses the full amount of money and just charge them a really small amount of interest on it?
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who'd pass on that.
Yeah,
You know?
it seems like they're targeting an area that, not just for obviously the people within Ireland, but like for tourism, people coming in, they want to, you know, sample Irish food and have that Irish experience, and you're targeting the very businesses that people are coming in to you know, interact with. So it just seems
Like, it's not that long ago you could get fish and chips for £8.
yeah.
You know, like, it's just not doable anymore.
Yeah,
you know,
it's mental, and yeah, and you're right. The consumer then just pays the price and starts to become too expensive to even eat out or to do anything like that.
and it's getting to the stage where business owners are not necessarily, they're not necessarily putting the price up to make more. They're putting the price up
To survive.
just to survive and cover what the other increase was. It used to be, like, you know, every business model is, you know, you move up your prices with inflation, you know.
Yeah.
If we had moved up chips and fish with, say, a pint or a packet of cigarettes, like every budget at the same rate, we'd all be billionaires at this stage.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Just from operating 1 or 2 shops, we would be in the money big time. And, you know, I think that's a huge misconception from the public as well. Like, we're not super rich people.
Yeah,
you know, we really aren't. Those days of chipper owners being,
driving Ferraris.
yeah, man. Yeah. They're way gone.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I think a lot of people think if you own a food business, you're absolutely rolling in it, but it's like it's an absolute grind. The margins are small. It's like,
In actual fact, I think it would be fair to say that the people who operate on a smaller scale, less days with less staff and overheads, they're the ones who are making, they're operating smart.
yeah.
You know, that's something I would like to look at in the future is diversifying into something else, possibly a little bit healthier, just for longevity.
Yeah. And
You
then
know,
you
I don't think the chipper will ever go as such because it's such a staple in the Irish culture, you know, but people are way more educated on food now than they ever have been before. You know, I remember when I was in school, all those many years ago. But I remember when I was in school, like, people didn't really know what pasta was, you know? And that's not the case anymore, man. People travel a lot now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they know food. So, yeah, I think I'd like to diversify into something else that's smaller and possibly easier to run.
That was going to be my last question for you. Where do you, like, what's the next 5 years look like for you? Like, what is the game plan? But it's a bit of diversification.
I'll definitely be getting into something else as well.
Any ideas? Any hints of what that might
Loads
look
of
like?
ideas. I'm a total coffee snob, so
Okay.
and I like a lot of different foods. So yeah, the plan has changed multiple times over the last few years, but I would like to get into coffee. I'd like to get into coffee because being in the business, it's hard to go into anywhere and not analyze what's going on in the place.
Yeah,
you know, like, you can see all the wrong things that are happening, but you can also see all the right things that are happening.
Yeah.
Like, you can't pass a chipper without checking the price of a bag of chips in it, you know, if you own a chipper.
Yeah.
It's a horrible thing. But
it's like the price of the pint if you're on a pub, right?
yeah,
you just want to
exactly.
see, like,
yeah, exactly. Like, but yeah, no, I think I'd like to get into coffee. It appeals to me. It's like a cup of coffee is not far off the cost of a bag of chips.
Yeah.
You know, but you don't have to stand over it for 8 or 10 minutes to do it.
Yeah.
And I think another thing is very true that, like, when people are strapped for cash, the unhealthy food falls by the wayside.
Yeah.
You know,
Coffee doesn't, though.
coffee. Nobody is going to skip their morning coffee.
No, it's powering their day.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
They might even come back for a second one, but if they don't, you know.
Yeah.
Plus, the fact that it's more of a morning time thing.
Yeah.
you know, I'd like to be able to just, you know, get something like that up and running and still have the takeaway.
Yeah,
Like,
when you get a bit more of a normal, like, working hours into your life.
yeah.
With 5
Yeah.
kids, that's probably important, right?
It's, yeah. Don't remind me.
Yeah, sorry. No, you're a rock star on a podcast. Like, that's
Stop,
yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming in. I really, really appreciate it. You know,
for
want
having
to
me.
tell people where they can find you, the address, the socials, all that kind of stuff before we finish up.
Sweet. So we're on at Burger Hill Arklow on Insta, and we're Burger Hill Arklow on Facebook, and burgerhill.ie. We're
With
on
us.
Flipdish, of
Love
course.
that.
You will find us on Flipdish every day of the week, 364 days a year.
Fantastic. Well, Francesco, thank you so much for coming in. Really
Thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers, man. Nice one.